And this is a Fox News alert. You're looking at brand new video of George Zimmerman arriving at the Sanford police station in Florida. Now, he can be seen exiting from a black SUV with his head and his face covered. His arrival happened just a short time ago, and these are the first images of him that we have seen since the police released surveillance video inside the station the night of Trayvon's shooting. Now, here is a look at the booking photo that was processed right after his arrival, and also brand new tonight, 45 days after the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman has been charged with second-degree murder. Now, the special prosecutor for the case held a press conference earlier this evening announcing the charges. Let's take a look at this.
Let me emphasize that we do not prosecute by public pressure or by petition. We prosecute based on the facts of any given case, as well as the laws of the state of Florida. Today, we filed an information charging George Zimmerman with murder in the second degree. A capias has been issued for his arrest. With the filing of that information and the issuance of a capias, he will have a right to appear in front of a magistrate in Seminole County within 24 hours of his arrest, and thus formal prosecution will begin.
Now, after he was charged, the Martin family, they responded.
First of all, I want to say thank God. We simply wanted an arrest. We wanted nothing more, nothing less. We just wanted an arrest, and we got it. And I say thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Secondly, I just want to speak from my heart to your heart, because a heart has no color. It's not black, it's not white, it's red. And I want to say thank you from my heart to your heart.
Now, shortly after Zimmerman's newly hired attorney, Mark O'Mara, held a press conference where he told reporters that he was not concerned about Zimmerman's mental state and that his client would plead not guilty to the charge. Joining me now with the very latest, Fox 35 reporter Shannon Butler, criminal defense attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland, and also joining us, prosecutor Anna Siga Nicolazzi. Did I get it right? Finally, this is amazing. All right, look, but your heart goes out to the mother in this case. She lost her 17-year-old son. Now, here we are at this point. They did the investigation. A lot of attorneys that I have spoken to say they overcharged. First reaction.
Did they overcharge? Well, how do we know that, Sean? We don't know what the full evidence is here. We have seen some very dramatic situation happen. We have heard it in the 911 tape. We know there's an eyewitness who, from what we can tell, did not know who was screaming help. He couldn't identify.
Murder with a depraved mind occurs when a person is killed by an act in a depraved mind showing no regard for human life.
Without premeditation.
Without premeditation, which would be first-degree murder.
Right.
And then if you look at, for example, you have manslaughter, you have different varying things. Look, we don't know all the facts, and this has been my complaint from the very beginning here, is that we have members of Congress that said he was hunted down, meaning Trayvon Martin, like a rabid dog. You have people that say he was profiled. No evidence suggests that. People saying he was killed because he is black. You have activists. You have a bounty on somebody's head. You've got now, so much surrounding this case. The special prosecutor says, no, absolutely no influence whatsoever.
And you know what I'm going to go with right now? We don't know all the evidence. And if you take a look at this special prosecutor, she was appointed on March 22nd. I mean, that's weeks ago, and it took her until today to formally file those charges. So I will say that what it looks like to me is that she took her time. If it was just political or public pressure, then why not have this information, these charges out in a few days? We don't know all the evidence. There's been some tapes that we've seen. There has been some of 911 calls that we've heard. You've got to believe, and I hope that there's a lot more.
Let me go to Shannon, who's on the ground. And Shannon, I still go back to, I think, the key interview up to this point. Again, not having all the facts, not rushing to judgment on this program the way other networks have. We have 3 networks, and we'll deal with this later in the program. NBC edits a tape that makes it quite incriminating towards Mr. Zimmerman. Then, of course, we have ABC. They get the video of Mr. Zimmerman going to the police station. They have to retract when they say, oh, no evidence of any injuries. A closer examination showed that. And then we have another network that has an audio specialist that says that a racial slur was uttered. That had to be retracted. So you got NBC, ABC, CNN, all retracting in this case, and then irresponsible comments by members of Congress. We got a bounty on the head of George Zimmerman. A lot of things surrounding this. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, even Mark O'Mara told me today that he really hopes the special prosecutor made the charges because she found that in the investigation. But I think it's a little hard to ignore everything that has surrounded this case, everything that has been said, everything that has been heard. She says she did this by the book, and the attorney right now thinks that that was probably the way it went. I don't know. I think we'll have to see when all this evidence comes out, because there's a lot of stuff we still just don't know yet.
We don't know, but you did have the one definitive interview. There was an eyewitness from day one, and you interviewed him, I believe it was immediately thereafter, or pretty close thereafter, and your eyewitness was adamant in saying that he saw Trayvon Martin on top of George Zimmerman beating Mr. Zimmerman, which would be consistent with A, the broken nose, the lacerations in the back of the head, and the grass stains that apparently were on the back of his shirt.
But all I can figure is he didn't see what happened right before that, and that's maybe how this prosecutor made that decision. We don't know if she interviewed this eyewitness. We assume that she did, but we haven't been able to talk to him since that day, so we don't know what he told her or what they found, or even if Sanford Police or FDLE ever talked to him. We know there's one other witness, too, that says that same exact thing. So, yes, there are questions. How did she come to this?
That would then be two witnesses that corroborate at least the story that Trayvon was beating up Mr. Zimmerman. And I would argue, and you're a prosecutor, that, you know, barring any new information we get, and we say that sincerely because I think we are going to learn new facts in the case, that at least on the surface seems to corroborate Mr. Zimmerman's story at the time.
Which, and again, this is a man who was not arrested right away, and then...
Wait a minute, he had handcuffs on, and he was brought into the police station.
But they let him go, right? I mean, so they decided...
Wasn't charged.
In Florida, they have that decision-making power. And ultimately, the prosecutor, to file charges in the state of Florida in a case like this, they have to find that there's probable cause, there was no justification. So, yes, we have that. But you know what we don't know? We don't know things like the forensics. Is the autopsy of Trayvon Martin going to corroborate? Did it corroborate, or does it disprove some of the things he said? What happened before? In the state of Florida, you can't use this defense if you are the attacker. Who initially started the physical altercation?
Well, I spoke to Mr. Zimmerman's father, and I did speak to Mr. Zimmerman. I'll keep that conversation private. I'll talk about the conversation with the father that was right here on this program, and his story was that, in fact, Trayvon Martin confronted him as he was making his way back to the car. We don't know, and I want to emphasize that. We don't know. I want justice in this case. If this was some type of racially motivated killing, and George Zimmerman does not seem to fit the profile as somebody who mentored minority children, was involved in a case to defend an African-American homeless man that was beaten by the son of a local police officer. Doesn't seem to fit that profile. But there's been this rush to judgment by so many. Do the injuries, forensics, do you think that can make a difference in this case? Because you're going to have competing forensic experts in trial.
We're going to have competing forensic experts. But you know what? He has the excuse to second-degree murder in Florida is sudden combat. That will absolutely make the jury declare a not guilty. So if they can prove sudden combat, or
I see a grin on a prosecutor, not a grin, but
that's Florida's
grimace,
law.
Perhaps.
And Florida's law, the stand your ground law, the prosecution is going to have to prove
that Zimmerman confronted Trayvon
and aggressed upon him, and that Trayvon was completely aggressive.
This is where we get into the issue. On the surface, then, in your analysis of the law, it seems like there might be some overcharging here. Now, this is a prosecutor that charged a 13-year-old with first-degree murder.
Right.
Which I would, you know.
Well, yeah, there is a bit of concern that she's a very aggressive prosecutor in general. But the issue is here, sometimes when you overcharge, you see what happens in Florida, the jury then acquits.
Well, look at the Casey Anthony case.
That's exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anna?
Well, I actually don't think they overcharged in the Casey Anthony case, but getting back to this case, as long as a prosecutor is a good prosecutor, that they are seeking justice, not just convictions, then I actually hope the prosecutor is vigorous and a
So do I.
Because
I want
that's what
justice.
they're supposed to be.
We want to know the truth.
She is the person who's been charged with conducting this investigation. You know, there's so many different ways that this case can go. Even if it's not racially motivated, that doesn't mean it doesn't equal a crime. And I say that again, absolutely not having all the facts, which I don't think any of us have. Was George Zimmerman the first aggressor, or was that Trayvon Martin? And if it was Mr. Zimmerman, what was it that happened then?
His father is very adamant in saying that he was confronted. We don't know.
We don't.
But that's what they are saying.
Right, that's what they're saying. He wasn't there. Mr.
But the one
Zimmerman
eyewitness that
obviously
Shannon
has a
interviewed,
self-interest,
doesn't that seem pretty compelling? That's the one person that saw a lot of went on that night.
But what they saw doesn't necessarily mean, one, are they accurate? Are they mistaken? If they are accurate, what happened before? What happened to Trayvon Martin that caused him to do
There's
those?
a 1 minute time gap.
The case.
Right, there's a 1 minute
time
time gap.
1 minute
between
time gap.
9/11
Can
and the
happen in
police
1 minute.
arriving.
A lot can
I
happen.
agree. I totally agree with you.
Right, and we're not saying.
And by the way, you never lost a
She
case.
never lost a case.
I have been fortunate.
I have been fortunate. I would say talented might be a better word. So, all right, guys, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And as always, Shannon Butler, thank you for being with us. And we have a lot more coming up on this tonight. And it brings us, by the way, to our text vote question of the evening. Should George Zimmerman have been charged? You can text us at 36288. Type H1 for yes, H2 for no, H3 if you're not sure. We have the results later this hour. And still to come tonight, much more on the Trayvon shooting case. And tonight, we examine the selective work of the Justice Department and Eric Holder, affirming that his people are investigating if Zimmerman broke any laws. But what about investigating the new Black Panther Party and the bounty they have out for Zimmerman? In other words, are the Panthers about to get a pass from Mr. Holder? We'll deal with that controversy and much more coming up straight ahead.
Hannity's Tapped to Vote.